All right, grade 9. Now we have already started speaking about the early Greece civilization, and I believe we have already consumed much information about them. For what we have already studied, is there any problem for speaking about the early Greece civilization, the main ones, the Mycenaeans, Dorians, and then speaking about the main features of the early Greek civilization, and also speaking about Sparta? Any problem so far?
No, thank you.
If you have a problem, have a mic or anything, just raise your hands, and I'll just re-explain again. I have no problem in this. Okay, so once you have any problem or you have any question, have no hesitation to contact me at any time. So today we are speaking about Athens. So what do you know about Athens? Have you heard the name Athens before? What is Athens? Anyone?
No.
Okay, do you remember Sparta?
Yes.
Okay, Athens is exactly like Sparta, another city-state in the early Greek civilization. Yes, bravo, Abdullah. It's a city in Greece. Yes, that's it. Right. Athens was another city in early Greek civilization, another city-state, of course, and democracy evolved differently from that of Sparta. Remember when we spoke about the Spartans, and we said that the Spartans were direct descendants of the Dorians, and they felt so superior to other people living in the same city-states or the non-citizens of Sparta. Consequently, the Spartan people held the most important position in their city. Besides the Spartans, they just isolated themselves from other city-states because their dignity or feeling superior or even their ego. On the other hand, Athens was an open city. Consequently, democracy will evolve and change from one thing to another thing due to the obtaining of wealth and money. Remember when we spoke about the three types of the three types of government? Remember when we spoke about the three types of
Yes.
government? Monarchy, aristocracy, and oligarchy?
Yes.
Yes, they change and they happen due to obtaining of wealth and control. Monarchy will always come first as the king or the queen is the central power of the city-state. Then aristocracy, when some noble landowners will evolve and will obtain much wealth and control, then they will try to make an assembly or a council to rule the city-state. And the oligarchy will happen when the people themselves will obtain enough wealth to contribute in their own governmental system. Sorry. So today we're speaking about Athens and how democracy evolves in that city state. So to begin with, can someone read?
I read.
Yes.
Democracy evolves in Athens. Athens was located in Attica, just north of the Peloponnesus. As many Greek city-states, Athenian government evolved from a monarchy into an aristocracy. By 700 BC, noble landowners held power and chose the chief officials. Nobles judged major court cases and dominated the assembly.
So the Athenian government evolved from monarchy into aristocracy. What does this mean? So simply the Athenian power, first they were king or queen, obtaining central power of the city, and later on some noble landowners started to contribute in that process, resulting in the aristocracy system. So the aristocracy system enabled those nobles to attend what? The assembly. What is the assembly? What is the meaning of an assembly? Anyone?
I don't know.
All right. Remember when we spoke about the prehistoric eras and we said that the elders of any village or any city, they made something called the Council of Elders.
Yes.
The Council of Elders means the time when all the elder people come and join in the council so that they can determine what they will happen to the government or to the village or even to the city. The assembly is the exact thing. So the assembly means the noble landowners from the aristocracy government, they attended that assembly, that council. And in that assembly or in that council, they started to discuss whether they need to evolve in trade, they need to defend the city against the outer invasion, they need to make some projects inside the city. And they started to issue the most important calls or orders so that the city will evolve. So simply, at the beginning, it was a monarchy, a king or queen just ordering and telling the people what to do or what not to do. Later, it was an aristocracy, and by being aristocracy, so we have a lot of nobles who will contribute in making the decision. Consequently, where will they gather? How can they meet? They meet in something that is called the assembly. So the assembly is like a council where nobles meet and start to discuss the most important issues about the country. So far, so good.
Yes.
All right, all right. So this shows us how the democracy evolves in Athens. So steps to democracy. First, we have reformers and trends. At the year of 570 BC, aristocratic landowners hold power in Athens when the power changed from the monarchy into the aristocracy. So by the year 546, unrest continues, trends taking power by force, or they appear. The trends are the soldiers, the most important features of warriors at that time. And of course, because now they are defending the country, so they needed now to have a position in the decision makers or to become the ones who say what to do or what not to do in that city. Because now I'm defending you, so I have the right to tell you what to do or what not to do. Later in the year 507, we have the Thessalians. They are regarded as the founder of Athenian democracy, a number of politically active commanded family. So simply, we have other families who started to see Athens as the place where democracy shall revive, a place where we can do something right for our country. We are nothing less than any other civilization. We need to evolve. Consequently, power must not be held in the hands of a very, very small groups. Yet, power of the country must be divided all over the people in that country. And we have the Solon, which is council existing of debates, and he was a very, very good king by that time, and we'll study all of them by one. So, forces for unity. Forces for unity. Before we jump to the third point, forces for unity, let's check the this content drives change. This content means when you are angry of something or you are very irritated of something. That is page 154. This content drives a change. So from the title here, we come to know that some specific people were not happy with the Athenian government. Consequently, they became very irritated, very angry, and they asked for more change. And how did this change happen? Abdullah Farayan, do you have a mic?
Yes, teacher.
Can you read, please?
Okay, I start from
The
this.
concept of drive to change.
Under the aristocracy, Athenian wealth and power grew, yet dissent spread among ordinary people. Merchants and soldiers resented the power of the nobles. They argued that their service to Athens entitled them to more rights. Foreign artisans who produced many of the goods that Athens traded abroad were resentful that Athenian law barred them from becoming citizens. Farmers, too, demanded change. During hard times, many farmers were forced to sell their land to nobles. A growing number even sold themselves and their families into slavery to pay their debts. As this as distance spread, Athens moved slowly toward democracy or government by the people. As you will see, the term had a different meaning for the ancient Greeks than it has for us today.
All right. So simply, first of all, we have the Athenians. We are divided into levels or groups. The most important level is those who just condemned the city state or who ruled the city states, which were the nobles by that time. Of course, other people in that city state they suffered a lot. Some of them were suffering a lot that they started to sell their lands to the nobles in order to pay for their debts. Not only the lands, yet later some of them started to even sell themselves and even their families into slavery only to pay their debts. Okay, when you own money for someone and you do not have money enough to pay him back, so you start selling your own family and yourself into slavery so that you can pay your debts, which was very bad thing. And by the increasing of the people who grow grave debt, and later they started selling themselves and also their people were very discontent, were very angry and irritated, and they needed something to change. The system itself is corrupted, so we need to change that system. Consequently, Athens moved slowly towards the democracy. All right. So, speaking about Solon and how he makes the reform. First to know, Solon, he was or he ruled from the year 630 to 560, and Hassan al-Jabbar coming late. Okay, he became so famous for his wise political and economic reforms that today in English we call a wise and skillful lawgiver a Solomon. Okay, when someone is very wise, very skillful, okay, and put some laws that will serve the people, we name him or we call him a Solomon, referring to that person in that era because he made some beautiful changes in the city of Athens, resulting in many reforms. So, hello Hassan, why are you late?
Yeah, yes, teacher. I'm sorry, but the internet connection.
Okay, no problem. Page 134, and can you read this? Solomon makes reforms. Okay, Azza, can you read? Okay. Solon, he was a wise, trusted leader, was appointed Arkan like chief or official chief. In the year 594 BC, Athenians gave Solon free hand to make needed reforms. He outlawed debt slavery and freed those who had already been sold into slavery for debt. He also opened high offices to more citizens, granted citizenship to to some foreigners, and also he gave the Athenians simply more say in important decisions. Rather than that, Solon introduced economic reforms as well. He encouraged the export of wine and olive oil. This policy helped the merchants and farmers by increasing demand for their products. Despite Solon's reforms, citizenship remained limited, and many positions were open only to the wealthy landowners. Continued and widespread unrest led to the rise of tyrants or people who gained power by force. So tyrants means people who gain power by force. The tyrants often want support from the merchant class and the poor by imposing reforms to help those groups. Because we have always known that the peasant farmers, the merchants, they are the most white common level or group in any society. Although that Greek tyrants often governed well, yet the word tyranthus came to mean vicious and brutal ruler, which is a very bad thing. And consequently, in Athens also, the people themselves, the citizens, they shared power and they also shared wealth. The Athenian tyrant Pisistratus seized power in the year 546 BC. He helped farmers by giving them loans and also land taken from the nobles. Now we have new building project give jobs to the poor. By giving the poor citizens a greater voice, he further weakened the aristocracy. So after your city was governed by a king or a queen only, later, some nobles took control of the city-states by imposing the aristocracy, and now the citizens themselves started to share the power, leading in the oligarchy. In the year 507 BC, another reformer, whose name was Cleanthes, he prudent the rule of ordinary citizens, meaning that he enlarged that rule, and the government started to appoint local people and normal citizens in the government, and he set up the Council of 500, which is a very important point. The Council of 500, rather than the Assembly of the Nobles. We have the Council of the 500, whose members were chosen by lot from among all citizens over the age of 30. The council prepared laws considered by the assembly and supervised the day-to-day work of the government. He himself made the assembly a genuine legislation or law-making body that debated laws before deciding to approve or reject them. All male citizens in Athens by that time were members of the assembly, and also they were expected to participate. So you're not just a member by name, yet you need to say your opinion and speak out loud and ask the people to do the same. Because after all, that's our city and we need all to take care of it. Athenians reformers also advanced some of the basic principles of Athenian democracy. He supported the idea of equal participation. Equal participation meaning that all citizens are alike. No one is totally different from another one. All of us can participate. All of us have the same rights. Up until then, equal participation had applied to the aristocracy. Athenians himself has expanded it to include all citizens who met certain qualifications. Equal participation was very different from the idea of democracy we hold today in our countries. Yet, it was the beginning of a new system of Athens. Later on, we will speak about the democracy within limits and the Athenian women. Regarding to the democracy within limits, we have by modern standards, Athenian democracy was quite limited. Only citizens could participate in the government. And actually, that's a good point because only the citizen of a specific people or a specific city will just need to evolve and take care of their own land, voting to choose officials and pass law or holding office. And also, citizenship was restricted to land owning men over 30 years of age. Citizenship also meant a responsibility to serve in government and fight for their policy as soldiers when needed. Women, on the other hand, were excluded from political activities, even if their families were Athenian citizens. And here we come to counter a difference between the Athenian women and the Spartan ones. Others group Others groups who had no political rights were merchants and people whose parents were not citizens. Also, tens of thousands of Athenians were slaves without political rights or personal freedom. Still, it was the labor of slaves that gave citizens the time to participate in government. Despite the limits of democracy, Athens gave more people a say in decision making than any other ancient civilization or city state in the early Greece civilization. So, although that the Athenian people did not hold much responsibility or much freedom as we have today, yet for the ancient world at that time, the Athenian government was far more better than any other government at that time. Any questions so far?
No, teacher.
All right, jumping to the Athenian women. Regarding to the Athenian women, of course, we will counter a huge difference between both Athenian women and Spartan one. If you can remember about the Spartan women, we spoke about how they felt freely to act, even they inherited some properties from their families as their male relatives were always concerned with war and for a long time they were away from home. So women held much responsibility in Sparta. On the other hand, in Athena here, we will find as any other Greek city-state, women had no share in political life. They respected Athenian thinkers. Aristotle reflected the general view that women were imperfect being. Okay, and this is a very bad idea actually about women. They are imperfect beings who lacked the ability to reason as well as
Teacher,
yes,
what's the meaning of imperfect beings?
they are not complete, not like us. So for them, they thought that males are complete. They can think, they can reason, they have the ability to debate. On the other hand, women are imperfect, not perfect.
So
Not
they thought men are better than women.
precisely, Abdurrahman. They thought that men are better than women, so they did not include any women in the governmental decision making or in any assembly or any political thing. So women were excluded from that because they thought they were not complete or imperfect.
Okay, thank
And another reason that they lack the ability to reason as well as men. We have the ability to reason. If I'm having a problem right now with you, Abdurrahman, we will come to a conclusion and we will find some reason for that debate among us, and then we will come to a conclusion and the problem is going to be solved. Measure this example for all of the political life. They need to expand, they need to guarantee some project. They need to travel to another civilization and have a trade with them, and they need to do something in their cities. All of this is nothing but about coming to a reason for a problem. So they thought that women did not have the ability to do so, which of course is not true. So he wrote for us Aristotle, which is one of the most important thinkers all over history. Aristotle is one of the most important thinkers all over the history. Okay, Aristotle wrote to us, the man is by nature fitter for command than the female, just as an older person is superior to a younger, more mature person. So meaning this, or the meaning about what he has written for us, that for us men, by nature, we are fitter for command. And actually that's true, because women, we think by our brains. We just try to come to a conclusion using our brains. But women always have passion over thinking or over reason. We, on the other side, we have reason over passion. So we think, we see, okay, this is best for me. Okay, although that I hate it, yet that's the best thing that I can do. But women, they think first with their passion. So women, by nature, are fitter for command. Just like a superior one, an older one is gonna always be superior to a younger one, because the older one, he has more wisdom, he learns a lot of things, and he has the ability to just give advice to a younger one who has no wisdom, or he did not learn enough, so he doesn't fit to give commands. Although that some men disagreed, okay, most Greeks accepted the view that women must be guided by men. In court, fathers or guardians respected or represented the women as they did for children. In well-to-do Athenian homes, women lived a secluded existence, shut off and protected from the outside world, because they thought that women are unable, they cannot protect themselves, so they must be shut inside homes, and women take responsibility for their safety. Greek playwriters also, such as Sophocles and the Aristophanes, prominently featured women or families in their tragedies and comedies. Social, political, and religious issues often were played out within family dramas, as in Sophocles' Antigone, okay, one of the best important dramas ever played, okay, Antigone, where a heroine's disobedience of a ruler's command puts her into conflict with her uncle and guardian. In Aristophanes' comedy The Clouds, a father tries to take control of his spendthrift son. So simply what we're speaking here is how the women were portrayed in their drama, play, comedy, and all the arts they have left for us, and literature. Women themselves played their most significant public role in religion. Their participation in sacred processions and also ceremonies was considered essential for the city's well-being. That's pretty easy, because they thought of female goddesses. They knew that there were some goddesses who are females. So females must take part in the religious ceremony, because there are some female goddesses who needs females to worship them. And the well-to-do Athenians home, women themselves managed the entire household. They spun and wove, cared for their children, and prepared food, but lived in secluded existence and were rarely seen in public. That's for the Athenian women, rarely seen in public. Yet their slaves or children were sent out to buy the food and fetch water from the public well. Only poor women went shopping alone in Athens. So, if your family is very rich, you will not send your own mother or the wife or the household of the family, which is a female, of course, to buy food or to bring water. But poor families have no one to be sent for them, so poor women went shopping for themselves. They worked outside the homes, often beside their husbands. They obtained water, did not, or did the family wash in a stream and tended the sheep or worked as spinners, weavers, or even potters. Any questions so far?
No.
Man is by nature superior to the female, and so the man should rule and the woman should be ruled. A man who teaches a woman to write should know that he's providing poison to a snake. Much of what we know about ancient Greek women comes from records left by wealthy, upper-class Athenian men. Their records give us the view through their eyes, reflecting their attitudes. They wrote about women they were familiar with domestically, wealthy, upper-class Athenians who were socially restricted, poorly educated, and with little power. They wrote about the women they were familiar with socially, like the numerous prostitutes and entertainers of Athens. They also wrote about the women they found strange, like the confident, capable, and even promiscuous women of Sparta. Nowadays, we assume the higher up the social scale you are, the more freedom and privilege you have. And for ancient Athenian men, this was true. Upper-class Athenian women, though, were treated very differently. Baby girls were often the victims of infanticide. They were expensive. They couldn't support their parents in old age, and in order to arrange a favourable marriage, fathers of girls had to find a dowry. Boys were sent to school and were free to attend the agora, the gymnasium, and festivals, and they could pursue their interests well into their 30s. Girls were largely uneducated, restricted to the house, and were only allowed out in the company of a male relative, often while wearing a veil. At the onset of puberty, girls were married off to men who were often 3 or more times their age. Once married, the young wife was expected to provide heirs for her husband. She was also expected to take over the running of the household, coordinating the slaves and working with her husband's concubines. She had separate quarters for womanly duties, like weaving and needlework. The husband had separate quarters for manly activities, like holding symposia, drinking parties where he would drink with his friends, entertain flute girls and dancers, and sleep with whomever he wanted. Athenian women could technically own property, but had little control over it because they were banned from buying or selling anything worth more than a bushel of wheat. They were technically able to divorce their husbands too, but this wasn't really a step towards freedom. It was simply a return of the woman and her dowry to the guardianship of a male family member. In fact, if a woman's father died and she was the only remaining heir, quite often she would be forced to divorce her husband and marry a member of her own family, like an uncle. This kept property within the family, and while her dowry came with her, the children didn't. Children were considered the property of their father. What did Athenian men think of Spartan women? Wealthy Athenian men found Spartan women strange. They were confident, assertive, nothing like the Athenian women. Sparta had a rigid system in which boys were trained to be soldiers. They were sent to the agoge from age 7. Upon graduation from the agoge at 21, they were expected to live in barracks, training until the age of 30 when they could finally return to their estates. Even then, Spartan men were regularly absent, training and fighting constant wars. In a system like this, much responsibility fell to women, and they were treated accordingly. Spartan girls were well educated. They took part in sports, were taught to hunt, to read, write, and do accounts. They were encouraged to be brash and assertive. At sporting events or festivals, when they did have contact with the boys, they treated them as equals, being confident and even outrageously flirty. no doubt aided by the traditional skimpy clothing for which Spartan women were known. Spartan women were usually married in their early 20s to men their own age, but married life led to few changes for them. Men stayed in their barracks, and women ran the estates. Husbands would sneak out of the barracks at night to see their wives, but this wasn't a romantic gesture, it was for the purposes of creating children. In fact, on the wedding night, women had their heads shaved, they were put into boys' clothes and waited in a darkened room for their husbands. It made the men more comfortable, having grown up in the barracks where older men took younger boys as lovers as part of an institutionalized process. Women were so independent, even within a marriage, they could take any lover they wished if it helped them conceive strong social conventions. Slaves were restricted in just about every aspect of life. Non-citizens or medics had a much greater degree of freedom.
So I believe here you can see that how women were differentiated from one city state to another. And that's gonna be it for today. And I hope that you enjoy it. So any questions so far?
No, thank you.
All right, you are pretty welcome. See you tomorrow. Oh, today's Thursday. Have a nice weekend, guys. See you next time.
Okay, thank you, teacher. You too.
Goodbye.
Bye.